Recharging the world. The hidden history of the charger. Electricity was never meant to move. When it first entered human life, electricity was bound to place. It illuminated streets, powered factories, and ran through walls like an invisible bloodstream, but it could not leave its home. Energy existed where cables allowed it to exist. The moment you stepped away from the source, the power was gone. The idea that electricity could travel with us, that it could be carried, stored, and reused, was not an obvious one. It was a radical shift in how humans would interact with energy. And at the center of that shift stands an object so common today that it often goes unnoticed: the charger. The story of the charger does not begin with smartphones, laptops, or electric cars. It begins with a far more fundamental question: how do you give energy a second life? In 1800, Alessandro Volta introduced the first electric battery, proving that electricity could be generated chemically and stored. It was a breakthrough, but a limited one. Volta's pile could produce electricity, but once depleted, it was finished. Energy was still disposable. Throughout the 19th century, scientists and engineers searched for a way to make electricity reusable. This led to the development of early rechargeable batteries, most notably the lead-acid battery. Suddenly, energy could be restored rather than replaced. But this breakthrough created a new problem: how to return energy to a battery safely and reliably. Early charging systems were crude and dangerous. They involved direct electrical connections, uncontrolled currents, overheating, and frequent failures. Batteries could swell, leak, or explode. Charging was not something ordinary people were trusted to do. It was a task reserved for specialists. At this stage, the charger was not a consumer product. It was an industrial necessity. Telegraph networks, railway signal systems, emergency power backups, all relied on rechargeable energy systems. Without controlled charging, these systems would fail. The earliest chargers were essentially power regulators, designed to tame electricity before it destroyed the very batteries it was meant to restore. As electrical engineering matured, so did the science of charging. Engineers learned that batteries did not simply need power, they needed managed power. Voltage had to be reduced, current had to be limited, and timing had to be precise. This was the birth of the modern charger, though it still had no recognizable form. The real transformation began in the 20th century, when electricity left factories and entered everyday life. Portable radios, flashlights, early communication devices, these technologies introduced the idea of personal energy. For the first time, individuals carried devices that depended on stored electricity. The charger followed them into homes. Still, charging remained slow, inefficient, and often unreliable. Devices were tethered to walls for hours. Heat loss was common. Safety standards were inconsistent, but something important had changed. Charging was no longer exceptional, it was routine. Then came the digital age. Laptops, mobile phones, and eventually smartphones reshaped modern life. Suddenly, the charger was no longer an accessory, it was a requirement. A phone without a charger was a deadline waiting to expire. A laptop without power was unfinished work. The charger became the silent partner of the digital revolution. But as devices became smarter, smaller, and more powerful, chargers had to evolve. They could no longer be simple power converters. They had to communicate with devices, negotiate energy flow, monitor temperature, and protect batteries from damage. Charging became a conversation. Modern chargers constantly exchange data with the devices they power. They adjust voltage and current in real time, slowing down as batteries approach full capacity, shutting down if overheating is detected. This intelligence extended battery life and reduced failure rates, making portable electronics truly reliable. The impact on quality of life was profound. Work became mobile, communication became continuous, navigation, entertainment, education, and commerce all moved into devices that lived in our pockets. The charger made this possible by turning electricity into a renewable personal resource. But perhaps nowhere is the importance of charging technology more evident than in medicine. Rechargeable medical devices changed healthcare forever. Pacemakers, insulin pumps, neurostimulators, portable diagnostic tools, these devices rely on precise, ultra-reliable charging systems. In this context, charging is not about convenience. It is about survival. Medical chargers must meet extraordinary safety standards. Power fluctuations that might damage a consumer device could end a life in a medical setting. As a result, medical charging technology has driven innovation in redundancy, fault detection, and long-term reliability, advances that later spread into consumer electronics. Industry followed a similar path. Factories increasingly rely on autonomous machines, mobile robots, sensor networks, and backup power systems. Charging infrastructure in industrial environments must operate continuously, often under extreme conditions. Here, chargers are part of a broader energy ecosystem, coordinating with power grids, storage systems, and automated controls. The most visible symbol of charging's evolution, however, is the electric vehicle. Electric cars transformed the charger from a personal tool into public infrastructure. Charging stations became the new fuel pumps. But unlike gasoline, electricity could be delivered at different speeds, powers, and times. Charging was no longer a single action, it was a strategy. Fast chargers, ultra-fast chargers, home chargers, smart chargers, all emerged to meet different needs. Modern electric vehicle chargers manage massive energy flows, communicate with vehicles and power grids, and optimize charging based on demand and availability. In this system, the charger is not passive. It actively shapes how energy moves through cities. Wireless charging introduced yet another shift. By removing physical connectors, energy could be transferred through electromagnetic fields. Though less efficient, wireless charging offered durability, waterproofing, and convenience. It found applications in consumer devices, medical implants, and industrial sensors. Beyond Earth, charging technology reaches its most extreme form. Satellites, space stations, and deep space probes rely on solar energy stored in batteries. Charging in space must withstand radiation, temperature extremes, and years of continuous operation without maintenance. Every watt matters. Every failure is permanent. Advances in material science, such as gallium nitride semiconductors, have further transformed chargers. They are now smaller, lighter, more efficient, and more powerful than ever before. A charger that fits in a pocket today can outperform systems that once filled entire rooms. Today, charging is no longer a background process. It is a design philosophy. Smart grids, bidirectional charging, energy sharing, and vehicle-to-home systems are redefining the relationship between users and power. Chargers no longer just deliver energy, they manage it, redistribute it, and sometimes even generate it. The charger has become a gateway between humanity and energy. We rarely think about it. We plug in, wait, and move on. But every charge represents centuries of experimentation, failure, and progress. It represents humanity's ongoing effort to control one of the most fundamental forces in the universe. The charger does not make noise. It does not demand attention. But without it, modern life would stop quietly, screen by screen, system by system. Perhaps that is its greatest achievement. Not power, but continuity.